My name is David Andrew Burrows, and I am doing the Master's in Ministry at IS. This is the Hermeneutics online class on my paper on Ruth. The introduction for this is the reading of the book of Ruth, bringing the interest in the theological or the theology of land. The world appears to be a recurring theme in the book of Ruth, at times accomplished by metaphoric events. It likewise takes prominent place in other books of the Bible as well as represented in the entire Old Testament account. Since this theology has been known to be an important concept in the Bible, few biblical scholars attempt to offer lucid interpretations of the land as it reflects in the specific biblical accounts. The interpretation: 1, the land has been referred to as the face of the earth, which was conceived as the living presence of humanity being, as well as his dignity of having been created in the image of God. 2, the concept of the land premise that it points to the heritage granted to the recipients of the land, such that the heritage is not just a parcel of land received, but the land provides and gives by God himself and remains his while his children benefit from it. As the owner of the land, this land serves as a space for the worshipers of God, a space where the Sabbath is kept, a space where the Torah is fully applied per its constraints, and the space where the obligation to the covenant are carried out. 3, it points to the specifics of the land as pertinent to the land of Israel, which is reflective of the blessings encountered based upon the relationship established between God and his people. As such, the land pertains to the Israel has become a place where God is obeyed and where his love is fully experienced through the boundaries of the land. With the plethora of interpretation, it turns out that a deep understanding of this concept of the land in the Bible necessary and hermeneutic understanding, so that despite the diversity of viewpoints, one can assume a variable interpretation that will account for the theology and distribution stands for. So, more so, to arrive at an intellectual decision as to show this theology of the land to be synchronous to lived experience founded in the contemporary Christian faith. The statement of the problem. This study opts to establish the unified picture of the concept of land as appeared in the book of Ruth 1:1. The following questions will guide the pursuit of this hermeneutical undertaking. 1, what does the word land mean in Ruth 1:1? 2, what are the theological implications that can be exacted from this study? The methodology. The proponent of this study will employ the heretical grammar method of the biblical interpretation, since the intent of this study focuses on the interpretation of the concept of land that appeared in the book of Ruth 1:1 and its theological implications. The contextual analysis. A, that context and translation. Ruth 1:1 and the NASB states, "Now it comes about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethel in Judah went to sojourn in the land of Moab with his wife and 2 sons." The contextual analysis. B, background of the book, the authorship, the prophet Samuel. The date during the time of the early monarchs of the king's time, about 1000 BC. The audience is the United Nation of Israel. The literary context. This verse is contained in the first set of parallelism constructions as shown in the diagram extracted from Bertman's published article, with the family history of Ruth 1 through 5, the ties of the kingship 1, 6 through 18, the women to speak to Naomi, the curse in 1:19, the ties of the kingship of 4, 1 through 12, the women speak to Naomi's blessings in 4, 14 through 17, and then again with the family history of Ruth 4, 18 through 22. C, the immediate context. This verse is found after the last chapter of the book of Judges, which depicts the chaos happening in the land of Israel. Because there was no king and every citizen of the nation did what was right in his own eyes. Judges 21:25. C2, the summary of the literary context. Take note of the distinctive features of the family of Elam of Moab and the family features of Boaz in Israel. This parallelism reflects the Judapok's confirmation, the family history of Elimelech, depicted famine and death, while the family's history of Boaz in the depicted blessing and birth, given cadence to the immediate context of the verse. It can be deducted that the setting surmises in the verse under the study involves famine and death, while the opposite to the climax is the narrative describes the blessing and birth. The historical context, the social political. D. At the time setting for this book is in the Judges, the time of turmoil when civil unrest was prevailing in the land of Judah, and the foreign invaders continued to threaten the people of Israel. It was also a period when the economic stability had been compromised, pushing locals to search for better opportunities in other territories. The detailed analysis of the text. A grammar and syntax. The word land, which refers to the idea of territory, country, ground, and earth, is the focal point of this study as it reflects in Ruth 1:1. This word occurs 4 times in the book of Ruth. Ruth 1:1, 7, 2, 10, and 11. It relates to 3 others, which includes pasture, open fields, territory of the tribe of the people, a plot of land, and inalienable heritage and heretical property. The names of the persons and the places in the book, or Ruth, are also interconnected to the concept of the land. There are also those which do not appear directly connected to the Semitic definition of land or ground, yet the professioned as constituted of the land, since they surmise the celebration of the fertility of the land. These are the crops of the land, famine. There is another one which appears distantly connected to the Semitic definition of the land or ground. Nevertheless, the constraints a part of it because of the syntax which denotes the infertility of the land and the sacredness of the crops. Can be attached with the syntax of the land. B, the syntax of the text. The translation as land in Ruth 1, which otherwise denoted the word country, earth, territory, and ground, this word directly relates to the tribe of people, the plot of land, the hereditary property. While these words directly connected as to the concept of land, there is also those who indicate a link with it, such as crops of the ground, famine or fertility of the land, and the redemption of the land. see the conclusion of the detailed text analysis, gives the context analysis and analysis of the text the interpretation meaning of land as it appears in the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 1. It is the construct within the interpretation that points to the specifics of the land, which directly points to the land of Israel. A nation which is supposed to reflect of the blessings encountered based upon the established covenant they have with God. As such, the land pertains to Israel has become a place where God is obeyed and recognized, hence boundaries of his love because of the tangible and experiential through the boundaries the land brings forth. In other words, the statutes of the covenant relations with God is reflected in the exclusion fertile of the land, such that when the God's people turn their back from him and allow themselves to be not governed by his precepts, famine or infertilization of land takes place. The beginning chapters of the book of Ruth reflects the poignant circumstances reflected in the concept of the land, where the famine, death, and infertilization reflected by Naomi's lamentation of inability to bear children in Ruth 1:11. This reflective has depressed circumstances in the history of the land of Israel. This happens in the context of a nation which, having turned its back from the covenant with their king of Israel, was in chaos and because it was not submitted itself to the authority of the great king, it turned its back from its covenant with God. When a baptized member of the church who has been made a pact with God, who promised him undetermined commitment and complete surrender choose to lead his life away from the convent, will live in chaotic life, live away from the authority of God, and turn one's back from his covenant relationship with God could be extremely dangerous. To live a productive and peaceful life, free from the vials of sin, allows God to be the king of one's life. Committed to one's covenant is necessary. Being steadfast in this relationship with him should be the moment-by-moment experience. Surrender oneself to him and let his authority lead every decision, action, and desire and needed. This is the conclusion of my hermeneutics research paper that I have done. Thank you.